Okay.
One nice summer evening, just after the sun was down, like good, but still, you could see catty cornered across at Newt Bryan's was a fire. And everybody was relation, you might say, for a mile or so around. And everybody knew everybody else's business, all they could catch on the telephone, because there's 7 people on that old telephone line. And if you called somebody, that meant there was 5 more receivers click off, so everybody could know what you was talking about. Well, in this case, they all knew there was no brush pile at Newt Bryan's that he could be burning. Something was on fire. Mary Bryan kept answering the phone. Said, "Oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's just a little building that caught a fire." The next morning, when he's lighting up to see, after the folks and Grandpa scratched their head a little bit, the old 2-holer toilet was missing. Come to find out that son Dale decided he'd try smoking. I don't know what he used for tobacco, but he had rolled up but then there was no toilet paper except certain notebook catalogs.
Right.
He had rolled up, made him a cigarette, and when he lit it, the head must have popped off and set the dry paper down in the edge, down the hole, on fire. And he couldn't put the fire out because it was burning good. So everybody was laughing. Newt had to hitch up in the wagon and go over to the little town of Smithfield that had a good lumber yard, sit down and figure out how much wood, 2x4s and so forth it's going to take to make a new 2-holer for the Bryan family, of course, to use. That was something for the neighborhood to laugh about. But this is something that my cousin Dale never liked the heavyset gal that come to his mother's in the summertime to get piano lessons. Because if you weren't too attractive, it was real nice that you learned, for the girls to learn to play the piano. Well, his dad worked on little gasoline motors and the first old Model Ts and on telephones. And they had a great big magnet. He had a strong one bolted down in his little workshop built on the end of the east porch. So he had this one that put out the power so he could just crank it and it wouldn't move. Dale decided how to get even with this heavy-set gal. In the middle of every lesson, Aunt Edith, his mother, would have about a 10-minute or so recess, you might call it. And she always had a few of those little, what they called sugar cookies. And it was a good time for him to go visit the outhouse, which was way out almost to the barn. And it probably was about a 3-acre patch all told, and they had 1 milk cow and some chickens. Well, he run a wire out underneath the edge of their walk, just a boardwalk, made it 2x4s on the edge and 1x4s nailed on top with about not quite a half an inch gap in between, so the dirt all went down. Out, up underneath, and the end of the wire, of course, was bared, wrapped around a nice new big thumbtack. They drove in the slope and the edge of the seat. Because the seat was made at a slope, therefore what they cut out still wouldn't fall down through, and that was the lid. Then he took a short piece of that wire, wrapped another big thumbtack, you can call it, out and down and grounded it. Plus he poured some water around that so it'd have a good ground. Of course, the telephone had a good ground up at the house. And there Dale waited until the gal went out to the outhouse and gave her about the right amount of time, and he started cranking. And I don't know how many times he told me, but he said all of a sudden that outhouse just shook. The door opened in. The girl couldn't think. She finally got it open and made it jump out into the potato patch, and the rows was up about, well, they was new enough they still was standing up instead of kind of wilting down as they got old. And instead of heading toward the house, she headed away from the house on her knees in one hand and her hand behind her butt. She thought she was being stung by hornets. Well, Dale said he never saw anything so funny in all his life. Then she stopped and realized she hadn't got stung for a while. Said she sat down and looked all around the country, nobody, she couldn't see anybody. So she gets up and straightens up her clothes, and away she comes into the house. Mrs. Wilson, there's hornets out in the toilet, but I got stung. Well, my aunt kept a good clean toilet. She couldn't understand why she hadn't seen any hornets. So when the girl left, away she went with a big old fly swatter out to fight the hornets.
Oh my.
And Dale thought that was such a good deal, he just gave his mother a dose of that same thing. And he said, you know, I didn't know Mom could run so fast. She caught me before I got out of the door. And she used a fly swatter handle. It was a big, like a number 9 wire. Boy, he said that took effect. But as far as getting his dad to give him a whipping, I doubt if that took place. He might have yelled and squalled out a sight from his mother, and they probably both had a real tear-shaking laugh over the whole thing. I don't know about that, but what was